So far, we've seen the different ways that we can define numbers in JavaScript. Now we'll take a look at a few of the mathematic operators that we can use to actually work with those numbers. So at this point, we should be pretty familiar with how to actually get numbers into our variables or into our JavaScript code. So now what can we do with them? Well, the most common thing we'll do is arithmetic operations like adding them, subtracting them, dividing them, and multiplying them. And we've already seen a little bit of this before, but let's just go over the operators that we could use. So we'll create a variable called O, and we can do something like 1 plus 2. Using the plus operator, we'll simply add the two operands together, in this case 1 and 2. Or we could replace this with a variable, 1 plus k, or we could do j plus k. So if we take a look at the value of O, it's going to be j plus k, which is 42. Or we could just do 1 plus k, and O would be 24. And of course, if we did 1 plus 2, we get 3. Subtraction works exactly like you would expect it to. So if we wanted to do 10 minus 7, we use the dash character as our subtraction operator. And the value of p will, of course, be 3. So the plus and minus operators work both with our whole numbers and our floating points. So we could do 1 plus 2.4 and 10 minus 7.3. And we'll get the values 3.4 and 2.7 as usual. Nothing too crazy there. So multiplication and division work pretty much the same way. If we want to multiply 3 times 4, the multiplication operator is the star. And on most keyboards, that's the asterisk, which is shift and the number 8. So 3 times 4, Q should have the value of 12, which it does. Again, we could do 3 times 4.2. And if we refresh and check Q, then we get 12.6. Again, we see it's not exactly 12.6, it's 12.6, then a lot of zeros and a 1. So it's very near 6, but again, this is the issue with multiplying our floating point numbers together. Sometimes we get these rounding errors, and we're just going to sort of deal with that right now. For division, we use the / operator. So we'll set variable r, and if we do 16 divided by 8, we will get 2. Now there's something very important to note about division. In some languages, like I mentioned before, when we have integers or whole numbers and we divide them and they don't come out evenly, there are two things that could happen. Let's say, for instance, we divided 15 divided by 10. The actual answer would be 1.5, but in some languages, because both of our operands here were whole number or integers, they would want to return an integer, in which case it would round down the number to 1. However, in JavaScript, all of our numbers are the same floating point type, even if they look like whole numbers. So 15 divided by 10 is going to, in fact, give us the answer 1.5. Now we'll see how we could round our answer down if we wanted to in the next video. But now just remember that division is always going to possibly return you a floating point number like 1.5. Now the next operator you may not be very familiar with using in typical mathematical operations, but in programming it's a pretty important operator. And it's called the modulo operator, and it's represented by the percentage sign. So if we take s and we take 15 mod, or modulo, using the percentage sign, 10, instead of giving us the answer to 15 divided by 10, instead it's going to give us the remainder of dividing 15 by 10. So if you divide 15 into 10, you get 1 with a remainder of 5. So 15 mod 10 will return us 5, hopefully. So if we refresh, take a look at s, we get 5. Again, if we did 16 mod 10, and take a look at s, we get 6. 26 mod 10 would also be 6, because 26 goes into 10 2 times, with a remainder of 6. And if we had the number 30, because 10 goes into 30 3 times with no remainder, the modulo answer of s would be 0. Now a little bit later on we'll see some practical applications of this operator, but it's important to know that you can use it to get the remainder of a division operation. So now we can combine these operators together. So what happens if we do 1 plus 2 times 3 divided by 4? Well, it really depends on something called the order of operations. Now, you probably learned about order of operations in your math classes in school, and the same thing applies in JavaScript. There is an order of operations to the different operands here. If there wasn't an order, for instance, we would get the number 1 plus 2, which would be 3, times 3, which is 9, then 9 divided by 4. However, that's not the order of operations in arithmetic. Instead, multiplication and division operations always come before addition and subtraction operations, and this is no different. So instead, what we get is 2 times 3, which is 6 divided by 4, which is 1.5, and then finally we do the addition operation. So t should be 2.5. So if we refresh and check out the value of t, we get 2.5. Now, what if we wanted, for instance, 1 plus 2 to be calculated before the multiplication and the division? Just like in normal arithmetic, we can use parentheses to group them. Parentheses will always be evaluated before any other operators. So if we wanted 1 plus 2 to be evaluated first, we can simply wrap the sub-expression 1 plus 2 in parentheses. Now 1 plus 2, which will be 3, will be multiplied times 3, and then divided by 4. So the result will be 9 divided by 4, and if we check out, we get 2.25, which is 9 divided by 4. Multiplication and division have the same level precedence in our order of operations. Similarly, addition and subtraction have the same level. So when two operators have the same level, the mathematical operators are what we call left associative, meaning that if they are at the same level, it will go from left to right. So in this case, it'll multiply our 3 times 3, and then divide by 4. If, for instance, we want to divide 3 divided by 4 before we multiply them, we could, again, wrap those in parentheses, but it should lead to the same result, 2.25. But anytime you want to control the order of operations, parentheses are what allow you to precede the normal order of operations of our operators. Now, there are a lot of other operators besides our arithmetic operators, and JavaScript has a well-defined order of operations on all of these. So if you're ever curious as to which operators will be evaluated first in a complicated expression, you can refer to the operator precedence table to determine exactly what will happen. Again, you can always use parentheses to control the order of the operations to how you want them to work. Up next, we'll see how we can compare two numbers together in JavaScript.